I never thought I would find myself in a situation where I had to install security cameras just to protect my own front porch. But after 3 months of living in the Meadowbrook Commons subdivision in Gilbert, Arizona, I had learned that our HOA president, Patricia Morrison, was not someone to underestimate. My name is Derek Richardson, and I had moved to this quiet neighborhood on the outskirts of Phoenix because I thought it would be peaceful. I worked remotely as a software developer, which meant I spent most of my time at home in my modest 3-bedroom house. The Arizona winters were mild compared to where I grew up in Michigan, but the desert nights could still get surprisingly cold, especially in January. My central heating worked fine, but my home office was an addition that the previous owner had built, and it always seemed to be about 10 degrees colder than the rest of the house. That is why I ordered a space heater from Amazon. A simple ceramic tower heater with a thermostat. Nothing fancy, just something to keep my feet warm while I worked. I had no idea that this innocent purchase would turn into a nightmare that would expose corruption, theft, and abuse of power that had been going on in my neighborhood for years. The trouble started on a Tuesday morning in mid-January. I was expecting the delivery that day, and I had gotten the notification on my phone around 10 in the morning that the package had been delivered to my front porch. I was in the middle of a video call with a client in New York, so I could not immediately go check on it. When the call ended about 30 minutes later, I walked to my front door, opened it, and found nothing but the welcome mat staring back at me. I frowned and checked my phone again. The delivery confirmation was right there, complete with a photo showing the box sitting against my front door. The picture was clearly my door with the decorative glass panel and the brass house numbers I had installed myself. But the package was gone. My first thought was that maybe the delivery driver had taken it back for some reason, or perhaps a neighbor had grabbed it by mistake. I lived on Saguaro Lane, a quiet street where most people kept to themselves but were generally friendly. I walked outside and looked around, checking to see if the package had been placed somewhere else by accident. Nothing. I went back inside and called Amazon customer service. The representative was helpful and told me that according to their records, the package had been delivered successfully. She offered to send a replacement, but I was more interested in figuring out what had happened to the first one. I asked about the exact time of delivery, and she confirmed it was at 9:53 in the morning. That meant the package had disappeared in the span of about 40 minutes. That evening, my neighbor Tom stopped by. He was a retired teacher in his 60s who lived 2 houses down and was one of the few people I had gotten to know since moving in. He often walked his golden retriever past my house in the mornings. "Hey, Derek, I saw you looking around outside earlier." "Everything okay?" he asked when I answered the door. "Yeah, just had a package go missing." "No big deal, Amazon is sending a replacement," I said. Tom's expression changed. He glanced over his shoulder as if checking to see if anyone was listening. "Can I come in for a minute?" I stepped aside and let him in. His dog, Bailey, trotted in behind him and immediately made herself comfortable on my living room rug. "Listen," Tom said, lowering his voice even though we were inside my own house. "I probably should have warned you about this sooner, but I did not want to seem like some paranoid old man. Packages have been going missing in this neighborhood for months. Not all of them, but enough that it is clearly not just random porch pirates." "Really?" "I have not heard anything about it," I said. "That is because Patricia makes sure nobody talks about it. Anyone who brings it up at HOA meetings gets shut down immediately. She says we should not spread rumors that might hurt property values." Patricia Morrison was the president of our HOA and had been for the past 6 years, according to what I had heard. I had met her briefly when I moved in. She was a woman in her late 40s with blonde hair that looked aggressively styled and a smile that never quite reached her eyes. She had given me a folder full of HOA rules and regulations and made sure I understood that any violations would result in fines. "Why would she want to cover up package thefts?" I asked. Tom shrugged. "Your guess is as good as mine. But I will tell you this. 3 months ago, my wife ordered some expensive skincare products. They got delivered while we were at a doctor's appointment. By the time we got home, they were gone. I checked with all the neighbors, filed a police report, the whole thing. 2 weeks later, I am over at Patricia's house dropping off some HOA paperwork, and I see the exact same products sitting on her bathroom counter. Same brand, same packaging, everything." I stared at him. "You think Patricia is stealing packages? I think something fishy is going on." I am not the only one who has noticed weird coincidences. Jeff Martinez across the street ordered a set of power tools last year. They disappeared from his porch, and then suddenly, Patricia's husband is using the exact same tools while working on their garage. When Jeff mentioned it, Patricia said they had ordered the same set from Costco. "That is pretty circumstantial," I said, playing devil's advocate even though my mind was racing. "I know. That is why nobody has done anything about it, but Derek, I like you. You seem like a smart guy. My advice: get a security camera for your porch. If nothing else, it will make you feel better. And maybe, just maybe, you will catch something interesting." After Tom left, I sat in my living room thinking about what he had said. The whole thing sounded crazy. Why would an HOA president risk her reputation and potentially criminal charges to steal packages? It did not make sense. Patricia and her husband Robert lived in one of the bigger houses in the neighborhood, a 2-story place with a 3-car garage and a pool. They clearly were not hurting for money, but Tom had no reason to lie to me. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized that a security camera was a good idea regardless. Package theft was a real problem everywhere, and having video evidence would at least help with insurance claims or police reports. I spent the next hour researching security cameras online. I wanted something with good resolution, night vision, and cloud storage, so that footage would be saved even if someone tried to steal the camera itself. I settled on a Ring doorbell camera and a separate camera that I could mount to get a wider view of my porch and the street in front of my house. I paid for expedited shipping and installed the cameras as soon as they arrived 2 days later. The installation was straightforward. The doorbell camera replaced my existing doorbell, and I mounted the second camera under the eave of my porch, angled to capture anyone approaching my front door. I tested both cameras using the app on my phone and was satisfied with the video quality. I could see the entire front walkway and part of the street clearly. My replacement space heater was scheduled to arrive the following Monday. Amazon had upgraded the shipping at no charge as an apology for the first missing package. I made sure my cameras were working perfectly, and even set up motion detection alerts to notify my phone whenever someone came near my front door. Monday morning arrived cold and crisp. The weather forecast said it would only get up to 58 degrees, which for Arizona in January was pretty chilly. I was at my desk working when my phone buzzed with a motion alert from the Ring app. I opened it and saw the FedEx truck pulling up to my house. The driver, a young guy in his 20s, walked up to my porch carrying a box. He set it down, scanned it with his device, and walked back to his truck. The timestamp showed 9:21 in the morning. Perfect. I watched the live feed for another minute to make sure everything looked good, then went back to work. About 20 minutes later, another motion alert. I picked up my phone expecting to see a bird or maybe someone walking their dog. Instead, I saw Patricia Morrison walking up my driveway. She was wearing yoga pants and a fleece jacket, her blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked casual, like she was just out for a morning walk. But we lived in Arizona, and people did not really do morning walks in January unless they were serious exercise enthusiasts, which Patricia definitely was not based on the HOA meetings I had attended where she mostly sat and ate cookies. I watched the live feed with growing disbelief as Patricia walked right up to my front porch, looked around quickly, and then picked up my package. She did not even hesitate. She just grabbed it like it belonged to her and walked back down my driveway, carrying my space heater like she had every right to it. My heart was pounding. I could not believe what I had just witnessed. Tom had been right. Patricia was stealing packages, and she had just stolen mine while I watched it happen in real time. I immediately saved the video clip to my phone and downloaded it to my computer as well. Then, I sat back and tried to figure out what to do next. I could confront Patricia directly, but that seemed unwise. She was the HOA president and clearly had no problem lying based on what Tom had told me. I could call the police, but would they take a stolen space heater seriously? It was only worth about $70. Then again, this was not really about the space heater. This was about someone in a position of authority abusing that position and stealing from the people she was supposed to be serving. If Patricia had stolen from me and from Tom and from Jeff Martinez, how many others had she stolen from? And what else had she been doing as HOA president? I decided to call Tom first. He answered on the second ring. Tom, it is Derek. You were right. Patricia just stole my package and I got the whole thing on camera. There was a long pause. You are kidding. I am not. I watched it happen live on my security camera. She walked right up to my porch and took it. Derek, this is big. This is really big. You need to do something with this. I know, but what? Call the police. Yes, absolutely. But also, you should know that there is a group of homeowners who have been trying to get Patricia removed from the HOA board for other reasons. Her stealing packages would be the evidence they need. Can you email me that video? I sent Tom the video and then called the Gilbert Police Department non-emergency line. I explained the situation to the dispatcher, who said she would send an officer to my house to take a report. While I waited, I made myself some coffee and watched the security footage again. There was no question about what I was seeing. Patricia walked up to my porch at exactly 9:43 in the morning, picked up a package that was clearly addressed to my house, and walked away with it. Her face was visible in the video. The address on the package label was visible. It was about as clear-cut as evidence could get. Officer Ramirez arrived about 45 minutes later. He was a young cop, probably in his late 20s, with a serious demeanor, and a notebook that he immediately pulled out when I opened the door. Mr. Richardson. I am here about a theft report. I invited him in and showed him the security footage on my computer. He watched it twice, taking notes, and then asked me to email him a copy of the video. So the woman in the video, you know who she is? He asked. Yes, that is Patricia Morrison. She is the president of our HOA. She lives about 3 streets over on Desert Willow Drive. Officer Ramirez raised his eyebrows. Your HOA president stole your package, apparently, and according to my neighbors, this is not the first time. Other people have had packages go missing, and there have been some coincidences that suggest Patricia has been behind it. You have any other evidence besides this video? Not directly, but my neighbor Tom, he lives at 4823 Saguaro Lane. He saw some of his stolen products at Patricia's house. And another neighbor had power tools stolen that later turned up in Patricia's possession. The officer nodded slowly. Okay. Well, this video is definitely evidence of theft. The package is clearly addressed to your residence, and Miss Morrison had no legal right to take it. I am going to go speak with her now. Do you want to press charges? Yes, I said without hesitation. I want to press charges. After Officer Ramirez left, I tried to go back to work but found it impossible to concentrate. Instead, I called Amazon and explained what had happened, sending them the security footage as well. The customer service representative was shocked and assured me they would investigate their end and send yet another replacement space heater. About an hour later, Officer Ramirez called me back. Mr. Richardson, I spoke with Miss Morrison. She initially denied taking any package from your residence, but when I informed her that we had video evidence, she changed her story. She now claims there was a mistake and that she thought the package was hers. She says packages get misdelivered all the time in this neighborhood. That is ridiculous, I said. The video shows the address label on the box, and she lives 3 streets away. Why would she think a package on my porch was hers? I agree it is not a credible explanation. She did return the package, which I have in my patrol car. I can drop it off to you. However, I should inform you that Miss Morrison is quite upset. She is claiming that you are harassing her and that this is all a misunderstanding. She mentioned something about filing a complaint with the HOA about your security cameras. I almost laughed. She is going to file a complaint about the cameras that caught her stealing. People do strange things when they are caught, Mr. Richardson. Anyway, I am writing up a theft report and the video evidence will be submitted. The county attorney's office will review it and decide whether to file charges. Given that the value of the item is relatively low and the property was returned, I cannot guarantee they will prosecute, but they might, especially since there seems to be a pattern of behavior. What about the other victims? Can they file reports too? Absolutely. In fact, if there are multiple victims, that strengthens the case significantly. You might want to encourage your neighbors to come forward if they have had similar experiences. After Officer Ramirez dropped off my space heater, which was still in its unopened box, I called Tom back and told him everything. He was thrilled. Derek, this is exactly what we needed. I am calling everyone I know who has had issues with Patricia. We are going to bury her in police reports. Tom, there is something else. Officer Ramirez said Patricia is threatening to file an HOA complaint about my security cameras. Can she actually do anything about them? Tom snorted. She can try, but security cameras are legal in Arizona as long as they are not pointing into someone else's windows or private areas. Your cameras are on your own property, pointing at your own porch. She has no leg to stand on. Besides, after this, I doubt Patricia is going to be HOA president much longer. That evening, I got a knock on my door. It was Jeff Martinez, the neighbor Tom had mentioned who had his power tools stolen. Jeff was a contractor in his 30s with calloused hands and a no-nonsense attitude. Tom told me what happened, Jeff said as soon as I opened the door. I want to see that video. I showed him the footage and he watched it with his jaw clenched. That is her. That is definitely her. I cannot believe we finally have proof. Tom said you had power tools stolen. Yeah, about 8 months ago. A full DeWalt drill set, worth about $300. I was pissed because I needed them for a job. Filed a police report, but nothing came of it. Then a month later, I am at an HOA meeting at Patricia's house, and I see my exact drill set in her garage. I confronted her, and she said her husband Robert bought the same set. But Derek, one of the drills had a specific scratch on it from a job I did. I know it was mine. Why did not you push it further? Jeff shrugged. What was I going to do? Accuse the HOA president of theft without proof. She would have made my life hell. You know she can fine us for basically anything. Grass too long, wrong color mailbox, Christmas lights up too late. I could not afford to get on her bad side. Well, I have proof now, I said. Officer Ramirez said you should file a report about your tools. Even if it has been 8 months, it establishes a pattern. I will do that tomorrow. And Derek, there is something else you should know. Patricia has not just been stealing packages. She has been embezzling money from the HOA. That got my attention. What do you mean? A bunch of us have been suspicious for a while. The HOA fees keep going up, but we never see any improvements to the common areas. The pool is falling apart, the landscaping is crap, and the playground equipment is rusty. So where is all the money going? I have been doing some digging, looking at the financial reports Patricia is required to file. There are all these expenses listed for maintenance and repairs, but when you actually look at what has been done, the numbers do not add up. Have you contacted a lawyer? We are working on it. A group of us hired an attorney who specializes in HOA disputes. She has been reviewing all the financial documents. But this package theft thing, this is the smoking gun we needed. If Patricia is bold enough to steal packages in broad daylight, imagine what she is doing with financial records that nobody really looks at. Over the next few days, my quiet life in Meadowbrook Commons turned into the center of a neighborhood drama that would make reality TV producers jealous. Tom organized a meeting at his house with all the homeowners who had issues with Patricia. 14 people showed up, and almost all of them had stories about missing packages, suspicious HOA fines, or concerns about the HOA finances. We learned that Patricia had been HOA president for 6 years, but before that, the neighborhood had 3 different presidents in 4 years. Patricia had run on a platform of stability and professionalism, promising to maintain property values and keep the neighborhood beautiful. Instead, she had gradually consolidated power, amended the HOA bylaws to make it harder to remove board members, and surrounded herself with friends who rubber-stamped her decisions. The attorney that Jeff mentioned, a sharp woman named Linda Chen, attended our meeting. She had been reviewing the HOA financial records and confirmed that there were significant irregularities. Based on what I have seen, Linda explained to the group, there is approximately $85,000 that cannot be properly accounted for over the past 3 years. The records show payments to various contractors and service providers, but when I tried to verify these payments, many of the companies either do not exist or have no record of working for your HOA. The room erupted in angry voices. People were outraged. We paid monthly HOA fees that ranged from $150 to $200 depending on the lot size. Over 3 years, with 230 homes in the subdivision, that meant Patricia had potentially embezzled a massive amount of money. Can we prove it? Someone asked. With these security camera videos of her stealing packages, plus testimony from multiple homeowners about similar thefts, we can establish a pattern of dishonest behavior, Linda said. That gives us probable cause to demand a full forensic audit of the HOA finances. If Patricia has nothing to hide, she should welcome the audit. If she resists, that tells us everything we need to know. What about criminal charges? Jeff asked. The package theft is definitely criminal. Embezzlement is also criminal, but we need to build a solid case first. I recommend that everyone who has had packages stolen file police reports. I will work with the Gilbert Police Department to coordinate the investigation. Once we have enough evidence, we can present it to the county attorney's office. I raised my hand. Patricia told the police officer that she thought my package was hers, that it was just a mistake. Is she going to get away with that excuse? Linda shook her head. Not with the video you captured. The box clearly shows your address. She lives 3 streets away. And most importantly, when there are multiple victims reporting the same pattern of behavior, it is no longer a credible mistake. It is a crime. Over the next week, 12 homeowners filed police reports about stolen packages. The Gilbert Police Department assigned Detective Sarah Williams to coordinate the investigation. She was a veteran detective in her 40s who took the case seriously, especially once she saw the security footage and heard about the potential HOA embezzlement. Detective Williams came to my house to interview me in person. She was thorough, asking detailed questions about the timeline, my interactions with Patricia, and what I knew about the HOA finances. "Mr. Richardson, I want to thank you for installing those security cameras," she said. "Without that video evidence, this case would be a lot harder to prove. Package theft is common, but catching an HOA president in the act is unusual." "Have you spoken with Patricia again?" I asked. "I have. She is sticking to her story that it was a mistake, but her explanations keep changing. First, she said she did not take any package. Then she said she thought it was hers. Now she is claiming she was trying to protect it from porch pirates and was going to return it to you later. None of it holds up under scrutiny." "What about the embezzlement investigation?" "That is going to take more time. We are working with the HOA's attorney to get access to all financial records. If there is fraud, we will find it. But these things move slowly. The package theft charges, however, those we can move forward with relatively quickly." Detective Williams was true to her word. 2 weeks after Patricia stole my space heater, she was formally charged with theft. The county attorney's office filed charges against her for stealing not just my package, but also for 3 other verified thefts where there was clear evidence. Tom's expensive skincare products, Jeff's power tools, and 2 other cases where neighbors had found their stolen items in Patricia's possession. The day the charges were filed, Patricia showed up at my house. I saw her on my security camera before she could knock, standing on my porch looking angry and disheveled. Her hair was not styled, and she was wearing sweatpants and a wrinkled t-shirt, completely different from her usual put-together appearance. I opened the door but did not invite her in. "Derek, we need to talk," she said without preamble. "I do not think that is a good idea, Patricia. You have been charged with stealing my property." "It was a mistake. I thought the package was mine." "I have been getting packages delivered all the time because of the holidays, and I just got confused about which house was which. The holidays were over 3 weeks ago when you took my package, and you live 3 streets away. There is no reasonable explanation for why you would think a package on my porch was yours." Her expression hardened. "You have turned this entire neighborhood against me. You know what you have done. I have served as HOA president for 6 years. I have dedicated countless hours to maintaining property values and keeping this community beautiful. And you repay me by destroying my reputation over a stupid space heater." "I did not destroy your reputation, Patricia. You did that yourself when you stole from your neighbors, multiple neighbors. And from what I hear, the package theft is just the beginning. What about the missing HOA funds?" Her face went pale. "I do not know what you are talking about. $85,000, Patricia. That is what the HOA's attorney found when she started digging into the financial records." "Where did that money go?" "Those records are confidential. You have no right to access them." "Actually, as a homeowner in this HOA, I have every right to review financial records. It is in the bylaws. The same bylaws you have been ignoring for years while you lined your pockets with our money." Patricia's hands were shaking. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Then I remembered how she had walked up to my porch without a second thought and stolen my property, and any sympathy evaporated. "I am going to sue you for defamation," she said, her voice rising. "You have slandered me to the entire neighborhood. You have cost me my position, my reputation, everything. Truth is an absolute defense to defamation, Patricia. Everything I have said about you is backed up by evidence. You were caught on camera stealing my package. Other homeowners have filed police reports about their missing items, and the financial records speak for themselves. Get off my property," I said firmly. "If you want to communicate with me, do it through your attorney." She opened her mouth to say something else, then seemed to think better of it. She turned and walked back to her car, a silver BMW that was parked crookedly at the curb. I watched her drive away and immediately called Detective Williams to report the interaction. "She came to your house?" The detective asked, sounding concerned. "What did she say?" I recounted the entire conversation, including Patricia's threat to sue me for defamation. "That is witness intimidation," Detective Williams said. "I am going to have a talk with her attorney and make it clear that she needs to stay away from you and any other witnesses in this case. If she contacts you again, call me immediately." The HOA drama reached its peak at the next board meeting, which was scheduled for the first Thursday in February. The meeting was held at the community center, a small building near the neighborhood pool. Normally, these meetings attracted maybe 10 or 15 homeowners. This time, over 100 people showed up. Patricia was still technically the HOA president since she had not been convicted of any crime yet, but the mood in the room was hostile. People were angry, and they wanted answers. Jeff Martinez had organized a petition to remove Patricia from the board immediately, and he had collected signatures from over 60% of the homeowners. According to the HOA bylaws, a 2/3 vote of homeowners could remove a board member for cause. We had the numbers. Patricia sat at the front of the room with the other 2 board members, looking defiant. Her husband Robert was there too, sitting in the front row with his arms crossed. He was a big guy, over 6 feet tall, with the build of someone who had played football in high school and never really lost it. He kept glaring at me and Jeff and Tom, like this was somehow our fault. The meeting was called to order and Patricia tried to proceed with the normal agenda, discussing landscaping contracts and pool maintenance schedules. Nobody was having it. Jeff stood up. "Point of order. Before we discuss anything else, we need to address the elephant in the room. Patricia, you have been charged with theft, multiple counts, and there are serious questions about the HOA finances. I am calling for an immediate vote to remove you from the board." The room erupted in voices supporting Jeff's motion. Patricia banged her gavel, trying to restore order. "That is not how this works," she said, her voice tight. "Removal of a board member requires proper procedure. You need to submit a written petition, which must be reviewed by the board, and then a special meeting must be called with proper notice to all homeowners." Linda Chen, the HOA attorney, stood up. "Actually, the petition has been properly submitted and reviewed. I have copies here for everyone." The bylaws require a 2/3 vote of homeowners present at a properly noticed meeting. This meeting was properly noticed, and we have well over 2/3 of the required quorum present. The vote can proceed tonight. Patricia's face went red. "You are not our HOA attorney anymore. You are working against us." "I was hired by a group of homeowners to review HOA records, which they have every legal right to do," Linda said calmly. "And what I found suggests that you, Patricia, have been misappropriating HOA funds for personal use. That constitutes fraud and embezzlement, both of which are serious crimes." The room went silent. Everyone stared at Patricia. "That is slander," Patricia said, but her voice wavered. "It is not slander if it is true," Linda replied. "I have documentation showing that over the past 3 years, you have written checks to fake companies, submitted false invoices for services never performed, and transferred HOA funds to personal accounts. The total amount exceeds $85,000. Robert stood up. "You cannot prove any of that." "Actually, I can. And I have already provided all of this evidence to Detective Williams with the Gilbert Police Department. The Financial Crimes Unit is reviewing it now." That is when things got chaotic. Robert started yelling at Linda, calling her all sorts of names. Other homeowners were shouting questions at Patricia. The 2 other board members, who had been sitting quietly, suddenly announced their resignations effective immediately. They clearly wanted nothing to do with the scandal. Through all of this, I was sitting in the back row, watching everything unfold. I had started all of this by installing security cameras and catching Patricia stealing a $70 space heater. Now we were talking about embezzlement, fraud, and the complete collapse of our HOA leadership. Tom, who was sitting next to me, leaned over and whispered, "You okay?" "Yeah," I said, "just processing all of this." "You did the right thing, Derek. If you had not caught her on camera, she would still be stealing from all of us." Eventually, Linda managed to restore enough order to conduct the vote. By a show of hands, over 90% of the homeowners present voted to remove Patricia from the board immediately. She was given 5 minutes to collect her belongings from the small office the HOA maintained at the community center. Patricia stood up, her face a mask of rage and humiliation. "You are all going to regret this, every single one of you. I made this neighborhood what it is. Without me, property values are going to tank. The pool will fall apart, the landscaping will die, and it will be your fault." Nobody responded. We just watched as she gathered her papers and left, Robert following behind her, still glaring at everyone. After they were gone, Linda addressed the room. "We need to elect an interim board to manage HOA affairs until we can hold a proper election. I suggest we start with nominations." Jeff was nominated and accepted. Tom was also nominated and accepted. A woman named Susan, who worked as an accountant, was nominated to help straighten out the finances. Within 30 minutes, we had a functioning interim board, and the meeting was adjourned. As people filed out, several neighbors came up to thank me for having the courage to stand up to Patricia. It felt surreal. All I had wanted was to stay warm while working in my home office. Instead, I had uncovered a criminal enterprise running under the guise of an HOA. The criminal investigation progressed rapidly after that night. Detective Williams executed a search warrant on Patricia's house and found evidence of the stolen packages, including some items that had never been returned to their rightful owners. They also seized Patricia's computer and financial records. The forensic audit that Linda had begun was expanded by the Gilbert Police Department's Financial Crimes Unit. What they found was worse than anyone had expected. Over 6 years as HOA president, Patricia had embezzled more than $200,000. She had created fake vendor accounts, submitted fraudulent invoices, and even set up shell companies to funnel HOA money into her personal bank accounts. The scheme was sophisticated, but ultimately easy to trace once investigators knew what to look for. Patricia had been sloppy, using her own address for some of the fake companies and making deposits directly into accounts under her name. In early March, about 6 weeks after she stole my space heater, Patricia Morrison was arrested at her home. The charges included multiple counts of theft, embezzlement, fraud, and forgery. Her bail was set at $50,000, which she posted, but the damage to her life was complete. Her husband Robert filed for divorce 2 weeks after her arrest. Their house went up for sale shortly after that. Patricia's mugshot appeared in the local news, and the story of the HOA president who stole packages and embezzled funds became a cautionary tale in Gilbert and the surrounding communities. The legal process took months. Patricia's attorney tried to negotiate a plea deal, but the county attorney's office was not interested in being lenient. The evidence was overwhelming, and they wanted to send a message that white-collar crime, especially by people in positions of trust, would not be tolerated. The trial was scheduled for September, 8 months after my space heater was stolen. I was subpoenaed as a witness, as were Tom, Jeff, and several other neighbors. The video footage from my security camera was the prosecution's star evidence. I had to take a day off work to testify. The courtroom was in downtown Phoenix, about a 40-minute drive from Gilbert. I arrived early and met with the prosecutor, an assistant county attorney named Marcus Phillips, who walked me through what to expect. "Your testimony is crucial," he explained. "The security footage speaks for itself, but we need you to establish the foundation. You installed the cameras, you can authenticate the footage, and you can testify to what you witnessed in real time." When I took the stand, I was nervous despite having done nothing wrong. The prosecutor asked me to walk through the events of that Monday morning in January, starting with ordering the space heater and ending with Patricia stealing it from my porch. "And you are certain the person in the video is Patricia Morrison?" Marcus asked. "Absolutely certain. I had met her before, and her face is clearly visible in the footage. There is no doubt." "What was your relationship with Miss Morrison before this incident?" "Purely professional. She was the HOA president and I was a homeowner. We had only interacted a handful of times, mostly at HOA meetings." "Did you have any reason to target her or want to get her in trouble?" "None whatsoever. I just wanted my space heater. I had no idea she had been stealing packages until it happened to me." Patricia's defense attorney, a slick-looking guy in an expensive suit, tried to shake my testimony during cross-examination. He suggested that maybe I had a grudge against Patricia, or that the security footage had been doctored, or that I was part of a conspiracy to remove her from the HOA board. None of it landed. The video was too clear, and my testimony was consistent with all the other evidence. When Patricia herself took the stand, her story fell apart under questioning. She contradicted herself multiple times, first claiming she thought the package was hers, then saying she was trying to protect it, then finally admitting she had taken it but claiming it was a momentary lapse in judgment brought on by stress. The jury was not sympathetic. After 3 days of testimony and less than 2 hours of deliberation, they found Patricia guilty on all counts. The judge scheduled sentencing for 6 weeks later. At the sentencing hearing in late October, the judge was stern. He noted that Patricia had been in a position of trust and had violated that trust repeatedly over many years. The package thefts, while relatively minor in value, showed a pattern of dishonest behavior. The embezzlement was far more serious, representing a betrayal of her neighbors and a theft from the community she was supposed to serve. Patricia was sentenced to 5 years in prison for the embezzlement and fraud charges, with the theft charges running concurrent. She was also ordered to pay full restitution to the HOA, which totaled just over $203,000 including interest and the cost of the forensic audit. It was a harsh sentence, but it felt appropriate given the scale of her crimes. Patricia showed no remorse, even at sentencing. She maintained that she had been unfairly targeted and that the audit was flawed. The judge did not buy it. Life in Meadowbrook Commons slowly returned to normal after the trial. The interim HOA board, led by Jeff Martinez, did an excellent job cleaning up the mess Patricia had left behind. They hired a reputable property management company to handle the day-to-day operations and brought in an independent auditor to ensure the finances were properly managed going forward. The HOA bylaws were amended to include better oversight and accountability measures. No single person would ever have the kind of unchecked power that Patricia had wielded. Financial reports were now posted online for all homeowners to review, and major expenditures required approval from the full board, not just the president. Property values did not tank like Patricia had predicted. If anything, they went up slightly once word spread that the corruption had been rooted out and the neighborhood was being properly managed again. The pool was renovated, the landscaping was improved, and the playground got new equipment. All the things that should have been done years ago with the HOA fees we had been paying. As for me, I finally got to use my space heater. The third one Amazon sent worked perfectly, keeping my home office warm through the rest of the winter and into early spring. Every time I turned it on, I thought about the chain of events it had set in motion. A $70 space heater had brought down a corrupt HOA president and exposed over $200,000 in embezzlement. It had united a neighborhood and restored faith in our community governance. And it had taught me an important lesson about standing up for what was right, even when it seemed easier to just let things go. Tom and I became good friends after everything settled down. We often walked our dogs together in the evenings, talking about neighborhood gossip and life in general. He liked to joke that I was the neighborhood hero, the guy who took down corruption with nothing but a security camera and a willingness to file a police report. "You know what the real lesson is here?" Tom said one evening as we walked past my house, both our dogs sniffing at the bushes. "What is that?" Never underestimate the power of documentation. If you had not installed those cameras, Patricia would still be HOA president, still stealing from us, and none of us would have known the extent of what she was doing. "I just wanted to protect my packages," I said with a laugh. "And you did. You protected all of our packages, and our money, and our community." Jeff Martinez also became a close friend. He ended up running for HOA president in the special election held that spring and won by a landslide. He was a good leader, transparent and fair, and he took his responsibility seriously. Under his leadership, the HOA became what it was supposed to be, a community organization focused on maintaining our neighborhood and supporting the residents, not enriching whoever happened to be in charge. The story spread beyond our little subdivision. Local news covered the trial, and I was interviewed by a couple of reporters who were fascinated by how it all started with a stolen space heater. One article called it the package that brought down an HOA president. Another referred to me as the man who solved crime with a doorbell camera. I was embarrassed by the attention, but also proud of what we had accomplished together as a community. It was not just me. It was Tom speaking up about what he had noticed, Jeff doing research on the finances, Linda Chen taking on the case, Detective Williams investigating thoroughly, and over 100 homeowners showing up to that board meeting and demanding change. Patricia served 3 years of her 5-year sentence before being released on parole. I heard through the neighborhood grapevine that she moved to another state, probably to escape the stigma of what she had done. Her ex-husband Robert stayed in Gilbert but moved to a different neighborhood, no longer able to face the people his wife had stolen from. The house they had lived in was bought by a young family with 2 kids. They were nice people who got involved in the community and had no idea about the drama that had unfolded before they moved in. That felt right somehow, like the neighborhood was moving forward and leaving the past behind. I stayed in my house on Sagaro Lane, continuing to work remotely and enjoying the quiet life I had originally sought when I moved to Gilbert. My security cameras remained in place, still faithfully recording everyone who approached my front door. I had collected quite a bit of footage over the months, mostly of delivery drivers, the occasional door-to-door salesperson, and neighbor kids cutting through my yard. But I never caught another thief. The package stealing stopped completely after Patricia was arrested. It turned out she had been the only porch pirate in our neighborhood all along. Sometimes, late at night when I was working in my now warm home office, I would think about that Monday morning in January when I watched Patricia walk up to my porch and steal my package. I thought about how different my life would be if I had not installed those cameras, if I had just accepted the missing package as an unfortunate loss and moved on. I probably would still be living in ignorance, paying HOA fees that lined someone else's pockets, wondering why our community amenities never seemed to improve. Patricia would still be in power, still stealing, still lying to all of us. Instead, justice had been served. The guilty were punished. The money was being recovered through wage garnishment and asset seizure, and our community was stronger for having gone through the ordeal together. The space heater still sat in my office, humming quietly as it kept the room comfortable. It had cost $70 on Amazon and had somehow ended up being priceless. Every time I looked at it, I was reminded that sometimes the smallest things can make the biggest difference. Sometimes standing up for yourself over something minor can expose something major. And sometimes, all it takes to fight corruption is a security camera, a willingness to file a police report, and neighbors who are ready to support each other. As spring turned to summer, and the Arizona heat made my space heater unnecessary, I packed it away in the closet, knowing I would need it again when winter returned. But I would never forget the role it had played in one of the strangest and most consequential experiences of my life. The Meadowbrook Commons HOA was now a model of good governance, with checks and balances in place to prevent anyone from abusing their position again. Jeff Martinez and the board held regular town halls where homeowners could voice concerns and ask questions. The finances were transparent and accessible to anyone who wanted to review them. And most importantly, there was a culture of accountability and trust that had not existed before. I had learned that homeowners associations, for all their flaws and frustrations, were ultimately made up of people. When good people were in charge, the HOA could be a force for positive change in the community. When bad people took over, it could become a vehicle for corruption and abuse. The difference was whether residents were willing to pay attention, ask questions, and take action when something was wrong. I was glad I had taken action. It had been stressful and time-consuming, but it had been worth it. My neighbors thanked me regularly, often bringing by baked goods or inviting me to barbecues. I had gone from being the quiet new guy who kept to himself to being a valued member of the community, all because I had refused to let a stolen space heater slide. Detective Williams called me a few months after the trial to let me know that Patricia was being investigated for similar crimes in a previous neighborhood where she had lived before moving to Meadowbrook Commons. Apparently, she had been treasurer of that HOA, and there were unexplained discrepancies in the financial records there too. The case was harder to prove because it was years old and records were incomplete, but my case had opened up a whole new investigation into Patricia's past. "You may have helped victims you do not even know about," Detective Williams told me. "People who thought they were alone in noticing strange things but never had enough evidence to do anything about it. Your security camera footage gave them the courage to come forward. That felt good." I had not set out to be a hero or to change the world. I had just wanted justice for myself. But in seeking that justice, I had apparently helped others find justice too. As I sat in my office one evening in late November, almost a year after the whole ordeal had begun, I thought about writing down everything that had happened. Maybe it would help other people dealing with similar situations. Maybe it would serve as a warning about what could happen when HOAs were not properly supervised. Or maybe it would just be an interesting story to tell my future grandkids about the time their grandfather brought down a corrupt HOA president with a space heater and a security camera. The desert winter was approaching again, and I knew I would soon need to pull out my space heater. This time, when it was delivered to my porch, I had no doubt it would still be there when I opened the door. Patricia was in prison. Her scheme had been exposed and my neighborhood was safe again. Sometimes I wondered if Patricia regretted what she had done. If she lay awake in her prison cell thinking about how different her life would be if she had just been honest, if she had not given in to greed and entitlement. Did she realize that stealing a $70 space heater had been the mistake that unraveled everything? Did she wish she had walked past my porch that morning and left my package alone? I would never know. But I knew how I felt. I felt satisfied that justice had been done, grateful for neighbors who had supported each other, and proud that I had not backed down when it would have been easier to just let it go. The security cameras on my porch continued recording, silent sentinels protecting my home and serving as a reminder of what they had captured. They were my shield against theft and corruption, proof that truth and evidence could triumph over lies and deception. My life in Gilbert, Arizona went on. I worked from my warm home office, attended HOA meetings that were now productive and transparent, and enjoyed living in a community that had been through fire and come out stronger. The package delivery drivers left boxes on my porch with confidence, knowing they would not be stolen. And my space heater, that infamous $70 appliance that had started everything, kept me warm through the cold desert nights. In the end, it was not really about the space heater at all. It was about standing up for what was right, holding people accountable, and refusing to accept corruption as just the way things are. It was about community and courage, and the power of ordinary people to create change when they work together. And it was about learning that sometimes the most mundane moments can lead to the most extraordinary outcomes. As I turned off my computer for the night and headed to bed, I looked at my security cameras one more time through the app on my phone. The feed showed my quiet porch, illuminated by the porch light with nothing but the welcome mat and the cool night air. It was peaceful. It was safe. And it was exactly what I had wanted when I moved to this neighborhood. Patricia Morrison had tried to take that safety away from all of us, but she had failed. Justice had prevailed, the truth had emerged, and Meadowbrook Commons was better for it. All because I had installed a security camera and caught an HOA president doing something she thought she would never be caught doing. All because a space heater was stolen, and I refused to let it go.